Shall we pray? Bow your heads, let us pray. Our Father and our God, tonight we are thankful to you that you have allowed us to be here on the land of the living. We appreciate the fact that you've kept us safe throughout this year 2021 up until this point. Lord, you see the reason why we are here, the launch of the National Youth Parliament. We thank you for our young people. We thank you for the wisdom that you have deposited in them. And tonight, Lord, we will be able to listen to the skills through which, oh God, they have garnered over the years. We pray, God, that as you said in all our ways, to acknowledge you, and you will direct our pathway. So we ask your direction throughout this night's proceedings. Let everything be done decently and in order. We ask you to calm the nerves of the young people, God, that they'll be able to do what they have to do in an efficient and effective way. We ask your continuous blessings upon us as a nation as we continue to recognize you as our supreme ruler and Lord. And so to you be all the glory, the honor, and the praise. In Jesus' name, amen. Remain standing, please.
Honorable Deputy Premier, Dr. Samuel Joseph, Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Cranston Buffon, Honorable Member of the Opposition, Mr. Donaldson Romeo, Principal of the Montserrat Secondary School, Mr. Tony Allen, Permanent Secretary of Education, Mr. Liston Skerritt, Acting Commissioner, Mr. Thompson, judges, other guests, those who are listening to us in Radio Land, online, and on Channel 96. We welcome you to this, our launch of the Youth Parliament. The privilege is mine to welcome you to the launch of this new Youth Parliament. Montserrat over the years has had many active youth parliaments, and we are reaping the fruits of their training in many sectors of our society. This evening, I am proud of the young people who have put themselves forward. This in itself was not an easy task. But from our interactions, I can tell you that they have brilliant minds and a passion for growth and change here in Montserrat. The Montserrat Youth Parliament is a peer-to-peer leadership program that brings together young people to debate the pressing issues of our time. Our mission is to inspire and empower young people in Montserrat to be pioneering, open-minded, and active citizens. We aim to develop strong, patriotic, self-aware, strategic, and dynamic leaders, thus securing the democracy and political lifeline and strong leadership for Montserrat. We provide a forum for young people to develop and express their opinions on political and social issues in an open and welcoming environment, to support intercultural understanding and growth by bringing young people of different backgrounds together to share ideas, opinions, and practices. We present young people with diverse opportunities for personal growth and skills development through non-formal and peer-led educational activities. We intend to create a network of change makers to connect Montserratian youth to a network across the Commonwealth, with other generations of diverse young change makers across the Caribbean, equipped with the knowledge and skills needed to positively shape the world around them. The Youth Parliament will grow and develop future politicians, senior managers, and leaders for Montserrat. The aim is that the youth parliamentarians will put themselves forward for leadership opportunities whenever they arise. This evening, as the initiation into the Parliament, each of them will present on one of 3 topics, and I know that you will thoroughly enjoy what they have prepared for you. Our moderator for this evening is Miss Audrey Jean-Baptiste. She hails from the beautiful nature isle of Dominica. However, her roots are buried deep right here in our beautiful Emerald Isle, as her grandfather is a son of this soil. She has been an educator for 22 years. Ms. Jean-Baptiste is very active in civil society and has been involved in national youth parliaments and youth councils way back in Dominica, and is a very active Rotarian here on island. She's a Cape lecturer who teaches Caribbean studies and history, and is currently a teacher at the Montserrat Secondary School, where she is the lead teacher for the Montserrat Secondary School student leadership team. Please welcome her when she comes to the podium right after we have an entertainment piece by Mr. Josiah Prasad.
Thank you for this beautiful rendition, Josiah. Good evening, everyone. Protocol has already been established. It is my pleasure this evening to introduce to you the judges for tonight's presentation. Mr. Kenya Lee is currently the Acting Deputy Financial Secretary and the Substantive Director of Economic Management, Chief Economist within the Ministry of Finance and Economic Management. He holds a BSc in Economics and MSc in Finance with a focus on economic policy. Mr. Lee has worked his way up in the Ministry of Finance from junior economist to the position he currently holds. He's a member of the Montserrat Debating Society. He was a member of the Montserrat Debating Society during his secondary and college years and thoroughly enjoyed the experience and will always be willing to lend his support to allow new generation of young persons to experience the thrill of debates. Our second judge, Ms. Angela Estwick, is currently the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's country manager for Montserrat. Her main public service career path included being a teacher, statistician, director, development planning and policy, cabinet secretary acting, and permanent secretary acting. She is a graduate of the University of the West Indies, Caville Campus, City University, and Nottingham University, UK, having pursued studies in a range of disciplines. These include economic development, social research, strategic planning and policy, statistics, and culminated with an MSc in information technology with distinction. She loves reading and traveling. She has excellent command of the English language and has a passion for editing, which she does as a hobby and professionally. Very relevant to her role today is the fact that Ms. Estwick has served as head judge and best speaker judge for debates on quite a number of occasions. This includes serving as the head debate judge in the 2014 and 2020 Leeward Island debates that were held here in Montserrat and the Caribbean Statistic Day debate in 2019. She has also judged introductory speeches for pageants, contestants, and determined winners for essay competitions. Our third judge, Mrs. Siobhan White. Mrs. Siobhan White holds a BA LLB honors in law from the University of Northampton and is currently pursuing her legal practice certificate combined with an LLM Masters in Law in Professional Legal Skills. After completion, Mrs. White intends to pursue an MSc Masters in Elections, Campaigns, and Democracy. She has also gained certification through several short courses in elections management, ombudsman practices, ethics, and anti-corruption and leadership and management from reputable institutions such as ICPS UK and GMSI. Mrs. White has over 15 years working experience at a senior level in the public service in the UK and in Montserrat. During her tenure, she has acted in several capacities to include Clerk of the Legislative Assembly, Clerk of Cabinet, and Director of the Constitution and Commissions Secretariat. In her substantive post as Senior Commissions Analyst within the Constitution and Commissions Secretariat, Mrs. White works closely with the Electoral Commission and has held the post of Registering Officer of Elections for several years. And she has also worked with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association as an election observer in the Turks and Caicos Islands and in Anguilla. Mrs. White not only excels in her academic and professional life, but also gives back to the community by being a supporter of the Montserrat Guides Association, where she volunteers and leads as the Guides Commissioner and an executive council member. Our final judge for this evening, Ms. Lucina Wicks. Ms. Wicks has been an educator for over 12 years. Her career began at the Braids Primary School, where she worked for 6 years before leaving to pursue a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Literatures in English at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, where she graduated with honors. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in teaching of English from the Erickson Teachers Training College with distinction. She is presently an English and literature teacher at the Montserrat Secondary School. She is a past debater and was on the debating team to represent Montserrat at the Leeward Islands debating competition in 2007 and 2008. She is also a founder of Excellence Academy, where they offer tutoring services for students in several academic disciplines. Ms. Wicks is a lover of the arts and enjoys chaperoning young ladies for the princess and teenage pageants. She hopes one day to open her own primary school, where she intends to continue to offer a high standard of education to the students of Montserrat. Ladies and gentlemen, please give our judges a round of applause. And so we get to the meat of it. We are ready for presentations by our budding youth parliamentarians. Our first presenter this evening is Miss Serena Lairda. Serena is employed as a clerical officer at the Supreme Court Registry and is currently pursuing an associate degree in paralegal studies at the University of the West Indies Open Campus. Through her love of performing arts, she represented Montserrat in the Theatre Arts Festival in Antigua and received great reviews for the play Shattered Dreams. Additionally, she is the title holders of Miss Commonwealth 2017 and Miss Montserrat Teen 2018. Serena sees herself as a beacon of strength and positivity for women on Montserrat and desires to promote women empowerment and to shed light on mental and emotional issues that women have endured in silence. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Ms. Serena Lairda, whose topic is sexual exploitation of children.
Thank you very much, Ms. John Baptist. As a member of the National Youth Parliament, I would like to extend a sincere welcome to everyone. To the moderator, adjudicators, honorable ministers, and distinguished guests, I wish you a pleasant good evening. To my fellow members of the Youth Parliament, I am grateful for the memories and opportunities we will create on this journey. I believe that public service is the hallmark of being a good citizen. I hope to be a humble advocate as we work to uplift this nation. Nelson Mandela once said, "Safety and security don't just happen. We owe our children, the most vulnerable citizens in our society, a life free of violence and fear." I hereby introduce the topic of my presentation: sexual exploitation of children, consent, protection, and the law. I will outline the definition of the subject, explain some of the causes, offer solution, and utilize a legal framework to show how it is relevant in Montserrat, the country we love. The Oxford Handbook of Sex Offenses and Offenders defines sexual exploitation as the act of utilizing an imbalance of power to manipulate a child under the age of 18 into sexual activity. Moderators, it must be noted that sexual exploitation does not always involve physical contact, but it is always utilized to achieve a sexual purpose. The Juveniles Act of Montserrat, which was revised January 1st, 2019, interpreted the definition of a child to be a person under the age of 14 and a young person as one between ages 14 and 16. The Collins Dictionary of Law defines consent as an agreement with another on a mutual issue. However, adjudicators, consent can only be given if parties possess the capacity to understand the subject matter. Therein lies the legal distinction. I will now outline 3 main categories for my presentation, which is quite simple: problem, causes, solution. Exploitation takes place in 3 stages: recruitment, which is also called the grooming process; control, which establishes the dominance of the perpetrator; and then the actual exploitation. The key factor that distinguishes child sexual exploitation from other forms of child sexual abuse is the presence of some form of exchange. The victim believes that he or she will receive something tangible as a result of the sexual interaction. Moderator, this ties into what I believe is the main purpose of sexual exploitation of children: economic hardship and need. Perpetrators are often calculating and entice their victims with gifts such as mobile phones. The specter of peer pressure is also a gateway to exploitation. The absence of a male figure, a strong one by the matter of fact, in the victim life can also be a factor. On June 30th, 2021, moderator, a former chief minister of Montserrat was found guilty of sexual exploitation of minors and sentenced to 15 years in prison. An investigation discovered that he used the same methods of gift enticement to recruit his victims. A study obtained from a United Kingdom government website revealed that in 85% of sexual exploitation cases, money was used to lure the victims. Since 2012, there have been 49 overall criminal cases in Montserrat, according to statistics obtained from the Supreme Court. 21 of those cases involve sexual abuse of girls under age 16. And remember, those are only the cases that were reported. Ladies and gentlemen, for a country with a population fewer than 5,000, that is alarming. Crime as we know it has existed since the dawn of time. But I believe sexual exploitation of minors is one of the worst because of the mental toll, and in the case of Montserrat, the shame one must endure in a small community. Permit me to say this: if a man robs a bank and is jailed, when he is released, he can make amends and probably make his victims whole again. Victims of sexual exploitation can never be made whole again. I stand here, moderators, adjudicators, distinguished guests, honorable members, as a passionate advocate for the protection of children and young women, and with the aspiration to become an attorney. One of my proposed solutions is for parents to more closely monitor their children. They must ask questions, look for changes in behavior, even search the rooms if you have to. Society also plays a role. In a small community, not much remains hidden. So allow me to say this: if a prominent man is seen transporting a young woman who is not relative, let me say that it should raise a red flag. Youth development programs would also provide enrichment to help children engage when not at school. Lastly, I strongly propose that there should be a sex offenders registry in Montserrat, as in other countries. Sex offenders should be prohibited from jobs that include close contact with children. The stigma, adjudicators, of being on a sex offenders registry would also serve as a deterrent. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, honorable members, moderator, Speaker of the House, sexual exploitation undermines the dignity of women, men, and children, regardless of race, class, religion, or gender identity. It causes irreparable harm physically, emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. I hope that we all can work together to ensure that children are no longer branded for the future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lairda. A wonderful start to the various presentations we have. And so we welcome our next presenter, Mr. Jaquan Nicholson. Mr. Nicholson is a past youth parliamentarian, an opposition member 2018-2019, who has a passion for culture and has many years of experience working at the legislature department. Working at the legislature department exposed him to many issues of law and governance, which fueled his desire to be an advocate for change. Mr. Nicholson believes that Montserrat is that seed, and the youth, the water necessary for its growth. He is an aspiring producer, sound engineer, who is the co-owner of a vibrant tropical urban band. Ladies and gentlemen, judges, welcome to the podium, Mr. Jaquan Nicholson.
Good evening, Madam Moderator, honorable ministers, judges, and guests. I would firstly like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this platform. When it comes to mental health, Montserrat needs to ensure that each child has a state of well-being in which they realize their own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productive and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. I consider this to be evidence of a positive and balanced mental health. When a child's mental health begins to deteriorate, the potential for mental illnesses increase. In order for us to provide viable solutions, we must be capable of identifying mental health issues. When assessing mental illness or mental health disorders, it is essential to identify patterns or changes in their thinking, feelings, or behavior that causes distress or disrupt a child's ability to function. When focusing on children, mental health disorders are generally displayed as delays or disruption, whether in development or thinking appropriately for their age. Our assessments will need to focus on their behaviors, social skills, or the ability to positively resolve their emotions. Our children display these types of mental health issues or disorders. Mental illness in the context of children is not considered a serious illness by many, but it should, simply because there are strong barriers we face when it comes to treating mental illness. It can be difficult to understand mental health disorders in children because a normal childhood development is a process that involves change. Additionally, the symptoms of a disorder may differ depending on a child's age, and children may not be able to explain how they feel or why they're behaving a certain way. Concerns about the stigma associated with mental illness, the use of medications, and the cost or logistical challenges of treatment might also prevent parents from seeking care for a child who has a suspected mental illness. This, I believe, should be an area where social services should consider assisting parents. Some of the most common disorders among children are anxiety disorders, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism spectrum disorder, depression and other mood disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Like most illnesses, Mental illness comes with symptoms, or should I say warning signs. What are some of these warning signs of mental illness in children, you may ask? Well, these are some of the warning signs which indicate that your child may suffer from a mental health disorder. Persistent sadness for 2 or more weeks, withdrawing from or avoiding social interactions, hurting oneself or talk about hurting oneself, talking about suicide or death, outbursts or extreme irritability, out of control behavior that can be harmful, drastic changes in mood, behavior or personality, changes in eating habits, loss of weight, difficulty sleeping, frequent headaches or stomach aches, difficulty concentrating, changes in academic performance, and avoiding or missing school. However, we should not just discuss indicators and signs of mental health. We should also know how to take action when these indicators are identified. If you are concerned about your child's mental health, as you should be, consult your child's doctor. Describe the behaviors that concern you. Talk to your child's teacher, close friends, relatives, or other caregivers just to see if they've noticed any changes in your child's behavior. Another contributing, but as teachers and parents, do we really get together and join forces with our students? Parents should be very, very careful of what they say and do around their children. It even goes as far as society. We always use the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, but what does this really mean? It means that an entire community of people must provide for, nurture, and interact positively with children of the community, for those children to experience and grow in a safe and healthy environment. Having said that, if the environment in the households, schools, and communities differ, then the question still remains, how will we treat the problems and barriers being faced? Veteran and experienced teachers should be working together always to get back to the proven formula. Get more involved in students' lives, because I am sure at least 60% of teachers on Montserrat teach a class and do not know what goes on in the lives of the children in the class they teach. Some of these veteran teachers may even be trying, and the junior teachers are not assisting as they should. It is essential that a unified front is achieved. A team approach is essential not only from the schools or the teachers, but from parents and individuals in the community also. The final stage we need to address is the communication system. We need a communication system that any student will actually use, one in which they can trust. Now, how can we get the student to trust us? We need to get to know the students. Why do we need to get to know the students? Because then we will know what the students need. In trying to learn what the student needs, a conscious effort to listen is essential. The end result would be the development of a relationship with the student. We will create a trust and a bond with the student. Having identified what the student needs, we don't have to force the student to utilize that system. It will just work, because we started it by getting to know the student and gaining their trust. This is our starting point. Both parents and teachers need to make it their individual priority to develop a communication system with each and every child. They also need to be able to create one that works with the unique demands of each and every child. This should be the concerted responsibility for every member of our society who prides themselves on being one of those individuals that's capable of making sure they impact effectively and positively every child in our community. Finally, Madam Moderator, I have left the most essential issue this country faces for last. That issue is the feedback mechanism our country is completely void of. A feedback mechanism that establishes an effective communication system that can be used by any student crippled by mental health issues and suicidal thoughts. To those individuals who play a role in the existing communication system, the message from our youths is clear. They need a listening ear that they can trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. I think you touched on a salient point of a feedback mechanism for young people, somewhere where they feel safe. My apologies that I forgot to say that his topic was mental health and suicide prevention. Our next presenter is Mr. Tyrese Herdsman. He is an awardee of the National Student of the Year Award 2014. He is currently employed at the Montserrat Public Library as a clerical officer, where he has developed a wide experience in customer service. Tyrese aspires to become qualified in software development as a computer engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, judges, Mr. Tyrese Herdsman, who will speak on mental health and suicide prevention.
Good day, family, friends, honorable ministers, Madam Speaker, judges, Madam Moderator, audience, whether that be here in front of me or virtually. My name is Tyrese Herdsman. Thanks so much for being here, and I'm honored to be standing in front of you today. I'd like to grab your attention for about 7 minutes to share how we can better deal with mental health issues and suicide prevention in schools. Now, imagine having a friend that is always happy and always smiling like Santa Claus just paid him or her a visit, to suddenly hearing that he or she killed himself the following day. We need to know what is mental health, what causes mental health, and how it is linked to suicide. Also, we will look at some verbal and behavioral clues in someone who is dealing with mental health. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Mental health can affect daily living, relationships, and physical health. Mental health and substance use disorders affect 13% of the world's population. That number could increase as people around the world shelter in place and adjust to a new normal amid the coronavirus pandemic. Mental health can have a wide range of causes. It's likely that for many people there is a complicated combination of factors, although different people may be more deeply affected by certain things than others. For example, childhood abuse, trauma, or neglect, social isolation or loneliness, losing someone close to you, or unemployment or losing your job. Did you know that social media affects mental health? It's true that social media can affect how we feel. Many people live their lives on social media, and this means children hardly interact with anyone in person, but communicate a lot on social media. Suicide is another issue to be looked at, especially with adolescents. Suicide is the act of killing oneself. It is sometimes a way for people to escape pain or suffering. While there are many factors that can influence a person's decision to commit suicide, the most common one is severe depression. More than 700,000 people die due to suicide every year. For every suicide, there are many more people who attempt suicide. A prior suicide attempt is the single most important risk factor for suicide in the general population. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 19-year-olds. 77% of global suicides occur in low and middle income countries. Ingestion of pesticide, hanging, and firearms are among the most methods of suicide globally. Some of the verbal signs are, I wish I were dead, I'm going to kill myself, I wish I could disappear forever, and my parents won't even miss me. Now for some behavioral clues. talking or joking about suicide, high-risk behaviors such as jumping from high places, running into traffic, self-injurious behaviors, which includes cutting or burning, and previous suicidal thoughts or attempts. These are the indicators which suggest someone has thoughts about committing suicide. And may I add that sometimes no signs are visible. However, someone can still suffer from mental health. As Raina Maria Wright would say, the only journey is the journey within. And this simply means having control. Having control of my choices, good or bad, control over the way things affect me or don't affect me. How can we deal with suicide in schools? As previously indicated, thousands of persons die each year from suicide, and the ages are usually between 15 and 19. It should be noted that young persons who are thinking of taking their own lives normally begin to give signs of their suffering. These include suicide notes and an unhealthy preoccupation with death. Persons who are normally suicidal do not ask for help. Therefore, administrators and other school personnel should take it seriously when they discover signs that someone is considering suicide. While the following are not hard and fast rules, they will help to address the situation. Remain calm. Ask the youth directly if he or she is thinking about suicide. Example, are you thinking of suicide? Focus on your concern for their well-being and avoid being accusing. Listen. Reassure that there is help and they will not feel like this is forever. Do not judge. Provide constant supervision. Do not leave the youth alone. Remove means for self-harm. Get help. No one should ever agree to keep a youth's suicidal thoughts a secret, and instead should tell an appropriate caregiving adult, such as a parent, teacher, or school psychologist. Parents should seek help from a school or community mental health resources as soon as possible. School staff should take the student to a school-employed mental health professional or administrator. Additionally, it should be noted that children and teenagers spend most of their day in the schools under the supervision of teachers and admin staff. School personnel should therefore be familiar with the warning signs of suicidal behavior. If the school does not have a psychologist, access should be provided to a trained counselor by the Ministry of Education. Parents should be notified, and if they are not sure how to proceed, then consent should be given to the school to proceed with counseling. The school should also promote good peer support and social networks, coping mechanisms, and promote cultural and religious beliefs that promote healthy living. I hope that I have been able to give you some food for thought on mental health and suicide behaviors in school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Herdsman. You have certainly given us some things to think about, especially those of us who are here as educators. Our next presenter on the topic of sexual exploitation of children, protection, consent, and the law is Mr. St. Luc Liblar. Mr. Liblar hails from the Commonwealth of Dominica. He enlisted in the Royal Montserrat Police Service in 2019, where he received 8 awards, 3 medals, and the Baton of Honor on the course number 10 passing out ceremony. He is currently attached to the Marine Department as a deckhand trainee engineer. He was a youth ambassador and vice president for his constituency Labor Youth Organization, a youth arm of the present Labour Party administration before migrating to Montserrat. Liblar led a group of young people from Dominica to China in 2017 for a Bridge to the Future program for Latin American and Caribbean young leaders. He was able to address various concerns affecting Dominica's youth as the team leader. Moreover, he proposed feasible answers not only for Dominica, but for every other country that participated in the symposium. His passion for politics prompted him to enroll at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Montserrat, to read for a bachelor's degree in political science. Liblar aspires to be a lobbyist where he can skillfully bring forth suggestions that will influence governmental decisions that will benefit the country and its citizens. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. St. Luc Liblar.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sexual exploitation of children, protection, consent, the law. The subject at hand, Madam Moderator, is delicate. To me, sexual exploitation of children is a national threat that must be eradicated as soon as possible. From a policing standpoint, I can state unequivocally that the RMPS has placed the highest priority on sexual exploitation of children, so much so that a department has been established to combat the issue as previously mentioned, which has had a success rate of about 80% so far. But to comprehend the subject at hand, we must delve into its meaning and the laws that governs it. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in the United States defines sexual exploitation of children as, and I quote, a range of crimes and activities involving the sexual abuse and exploitation of a child for the financial benefit of any person or in exchange for anything of value, monetary or non-monetary, given or received by any person, end quote. But Section 71, Cap 04.02 of the Penal Code, Laws of Montserrat, speaks specifically of dealing with people under the age of 18. Now, Madam Moderator, I will not get into all of the nitty-gritty of this section, as it is pretty lengthy. But I will say someone is guilty of this act if they sells, buys, barter, rent, hire, detain, confine, imprison, or in any way enter into a deal involving a person under the age of 18 years for the purpose of sexual exploitation of that person, has committed an offense and is liable on conviction to imprisonment for life. Madam Moderator, you may have noticed that I took a long pause. It is not that I have forgotten my speech, but I'm trying to process something we hear almost every day. Something our society's leaders say, something the men and women our children ought to trust says. Our children are the future of tomorrow. Our children are the future of tomorrow. Our children are the future of tomorrow. But how can our children be the future of tomorrow when the people they entrust to lay the foundation to the future are the ones destroying it? Madam Moderator, oftentimes we see young men and women behaving inappropriately, and as adults we stand and say, look at that child, oh that child is this, or oh that child is that. But do we know the psychological impact that our offenders' actions have on our children? In psychology, Madam Moderator, there is something called the Sigmund Freud theory that speaks of the 5 stages of psychosexual development. And if any of these stages are traumatic, Madam Moderator, this is a recipe for disaster. This causes obsession, fixation, addiction, confusion, and pain. We must comprehend that even if there is some form of exchange, sexual exploitation of children is never the victim's fault. All children and young people under the age of 18 have a right to be safe and protected from harm. My dear friends, a child cannot agree to be abused. And you know, the sad part about it is, about 90% of all sexual exploitation of children is being done by someone the child knows and trusts. Is this what we want for our children? So what then can we do to curb the issue of sexual exploitation of children? First and foremost, we must communicate with our children so that they will notify us if anything suspicious occurs. These conversations may be difficult and uncomfortable, but it is possible. Begin while they are still in their infancy. Inform them that the private body parts are private and no one is allowed to touch them. Tell them to call you, the parents, if anyone approaches them. There should be no hidden secrets. And as they grow, you continue to remind them, letting them know that they can talk to you. And by doing so, you assist them in recognizing when someone crosses the line. We should have these discussions at home, at school, at churches. Raise public awareness. Talk until the prevention of sexual exploitation of children becomes as natural as wearing a mask. And to my dear parents, when your children come to you with a complaint, it is your responsibility to inquire about it. When they come home with something you did not purchase or knows nothing about, you should be concerned. Madam Moderator, as I look up, I must smile. And I must say that I am pleased that government representatives are here today. And those who are not are at home listening as I advocate for further funding and resources to be allocated to the RMPS Child Safeguarding Unit so that the team can continue in championing the fight against sexual exploitation of children. We all have a part to play in Montserrat's future, my dear friends. Madam Moderator, permit me to end with a quote from childinsiders.com that says, and I quote, "If you want to see the value of a nation, pay close attention to the way they treat their children. For all children are pure, but not all adults are." End quote. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liblar. A lot of good information. I think one of the key things I took away was that the Montserrat Police Force, they have a child safeguarding unit. And I see that Mr. Liblar is advocating for more funding for this unit. Our next presenter, again on the topic of sexual exploitation of children, protection, consent, and the law, is none other than Miss Jessamine Pierre. Miss Pierre hails from the beautiful and historically rich island of Haiti and is a recent graduate of the Montserrat Secondary School, where she obtained 7 CSEC subjects, including mathematics and English. When she migrated to Montserrat in 2016, she had no knowledge of English, but through her determination and perseverance, she was able to overcome this obstacle. Miss Pierre believes that she can be an example for her fellow Haitians, that with dedication and hard work, one can do anything he or she sets his or her mind to. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter, Ms. Jessamine Pierre.
Madam Speaker, judges, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening. I am honored to be given the opportunity to address you on a topic that is of global concern, the sexual exploitation of children, protection, consent, and the law. Knowledge is power, so permit me, honorable judges, to define the term child sexual exploitation. Child sexual exploitation is a form of sexual abuse. It is when a person takes advantage of a child, either through force or to entice the child in engaging in sexual activity in return for something. Further, it is important for us to know what the term child means in law, as this is not consistent. The term child is defined by the United Nations in Article 1 of the United Nations Convention as anyone up to the age of 18 years, whereas in Montserrat, it is defined as anyone up to under the age of 16 years for most sexual offenses against children. The Penal Code of Montserrat creates criminal offenses where a child is under the age of 16 rather than 18 years. I'd like for you to think quietly to yourself. No need for identification. But my question for you is, have you or anyone you know been a victim of this? The sexual exploitation of children is an issue that has been around for generations around the globe. Here on Montserrat, it is a hush-hush conversation that although we know it is a cause of concern, many turn a blind eye, mostly due to the potential implication it could have on family, friends, or prominent member of society. In many cases as well, due to the lack of education and awareness, many children do not even know that they are victims of such a heinous crime. Unfortunately, crimes like these are committed by persons closest to the victim. Many of the abusers are close to the families and people in the community they think they could trust. This results in the lack of reporting and punishment, as victims often do not file an official report or are encouraged not to. Oftentimes afraid of the abuser threatening to blackmail them or the families. There is also the issue if not being believed or victim shaming can discourage persons from coming forward. All children need to be protected, irregardless of their gender, economic status, or family notoriety. Children are very vulnerable. They are incapable of making life-altering decisions until they are 18, and as such should be especially protected until they are. Many children become targets of sexual exploitation due to becoming from challenging homes. Exploiters often go to the girls or boys that are in need of using money or the promise of material things as a way to attract them. Their motive is to lure them and better a life and use this as a way to take advantage of them. Children who are victims of sexual exploitation may become withdrawn and may be more prone to mental illness. As a result, their social skills and academic performances will suffer. I wish to use my platform to advocate for a stronger legislative framework which can take the form of a review of existing legislation and policies that will better able to protect our youth. I also believe that the age of consent should be in line with the United Nations defining of a child, which is 18, giving young persons on Montserrat a chance to mentally and emotionally mature enough to be able to make decisions. As a nation, more resources needs to be put towards education, outreach, and awareness so that children on Montserrat are better equipped to handle situations that may make them fall victims to predators. We are a small community, but we have the ability to come together to eliminate this ill which harms children. Let's not continue to turn a blind eye. We can work together. As the popular proverb says, it takes a village to raise one child. Let's raise our children in society free of sexual exploitation of children. Once again, thank you for the opportunity, and I do hope that my words resonate with you and to all those who have the power to make the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierre. One of the key elements I hope that we take from what she said would be to look at the age of consent being in line with those of the United Nations. Parliamentarians, I hope we're listening. Our next presenter is Ms. Haley Shea Casey. Ms. Casey is currently enrolled at the Montserrat Secondary School and is head girl of the student leadership team. She is a member of the Saturday morning pre-cultural show hosted by Ms. Rose Willock on ZJB Radio. She has attained regional and local awards in writing and poster competitions, which is indicative of her love for the arts. She holds these two mottos close to her heart. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, and be the change you wish to see in the world. As a potential leader, Haley Shea believes that she should lead by example and inspire so others aspire to emulate us. Haley Shea will speak on the topic, how can we better deal with mental health issues and suicide prevention in schools? Judges, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podium, Ms. Haley Shea Casey.
Distinguished guests, Madam Speaker of the House, honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening. This evening, I will be embarking on this subject, how can we better deal with mental health issues and suicide prevention in schools? Throughout the proceedings of this speech, I will attempt to paint a picture of Montserrat's mental health issues, try to convince you about the importance of mental health, and finally, I'll provide possible solutions to tackle our conundrums. This COVID-19 pandemic has given greater credibility and rise of fame to one particular organization. And in comical phrasing, we all know who is the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization conducted a mental health study in Montserrat in 2007. They found out within that year, 44 patients were treated for various disorders of mental health. 36% of these patients were females. 2% were children at school age, and the mental health issues range from schizophrenia to mood disorders. Focusing on the question at hand, we can now clearly recognize that there are reported cases of mental health issues amongst our school population in Montserrat, approximately 2% in that year alone. These are not hearsays, these are not my words. This is documented facts according to WHO, in conjunction with our Ministry of Health. Let us stick a pin at that point, and firstly examine why mental health is so important. Mental health pertains to our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, the way our young people feel, and of course, the manner in which we act. For something so pertinent to be dismissed due to the fact you cannot physically see it, it is ludicrous. Michelle Obama put it well when she said, whether an illness affects your heart, leg, or brain, it is still an illness. There should be no distinction. To put it into perspective that we can all relate to mental health, if we compare it to the common cold. There are levels to the severity of a cold, but it is still a cold. You may have a mild headache, then it escalates to a sore throat. Then sneezing starts to take over. It then further deteriorates to a fever with a stuffy nose that renders you incapable of completing daily activities. I deliberately left out coughing because I don't want the audience running out thinking it's corona. The same can be said to the degrees of mental health disorders demonstrated by our young people. There is no doubt more youth today are constantly battling mental health issues, specifically to the uprise in social media use in Montserrat. In 2020, on Montserrat, schools collected data on their students, asking them if they had access to internet and a device to conduct online schooling during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was shown 97% had access. This means majority of the children on Montserrat, ages 5 to 16, actively use the internet and social media and are frequently exposed to its negativity. We can observe how social media has impacted our children's mental health in the community, especially when they are comparing themselves to others and their picture-perfect versions. Young people in schools feel like their lifestyles or looks are not matching up with the emulated on social media. This makes them have a fall in self-esteem. This makes them less confident and leads to the commencement and isolation for blaming others, temper tantrums, and even depression. This description sounds familiar to the common cold I mentioned earlier, from mild to severe symptoms. Now in Montserrat, we are blessed to say that no student has ever committed suicide. But that does not mean no one has never thought about it. Have you ever thought about those individuals, specifically girls, whose explicit photos have been leaked in the past? The trauma they went through and the thoughts that crossed their minds. Or those students who struggle with their body image, who feel they are not good enough to continue living in a society that persistently compares them to others. Montserrat, are we going to wait until a student decides to end their precious gift of life for us to seriously care for their mental health? It is our responsibility to our youth to encourage, motivate, and value them as they are. We cannot get rid of social media completely, as it is vital to this modern world. We must, however, educate our teachers, our parents, our students, and members in the community to observe symptoms of mental health and know the treatments for it. Prevention is better than cure. I'm taking this opportunity to implore you, yes you, as our current leaders, to put measures in place to prevent our young people from going down the rabbit hole of mental health issues associated with our current dynamics, inclusive of the use of social media. According to the WHO's report on Montserrat's mental health sector, the government spends only 2% of its budget tackling the mental health sector, the mental health issues. My solution as a young, prospective youth parliamentarian is to encourage the government to take on new policies to address mild mental health issues in schools by increasing their spending towards the matter, having more awareness programs, through all mediums and develop training programs for relevant personnel, such as peer counselors. This is just the start to address the deafening silent cries of our young people as they battle mentally to find themselves in our new world. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to shed some light on this matter. Please let the words resonate with you, even as I leave the stage. Our young people need you. They need your help. Again, I thank you.
Thank you, Haley Shea, and my apologies, it is Cassie and not Casey. Our seventh presenter is none other than Miss Clarabel Figueroa. Ms. Figueroa believes that through youth participation and engagement, a lot more can be achieved. She is actively involved in youth work as the leader of the St. Augustine Rainbows Girl Guides. She currently works as a youth and community development worker within the Department of Community, Youth, and Sports Services. Ms. Figueroa is a second-year student at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, where she is pursuing a BSc Youth Development work with a minor in management. Lifelong, continuous, and transformative learning and skill building is one of her priorities, second to being the best mom possible to her baby boy. Ms. Figueroa will speak on the topic, what are the barriers to young people entering employment across Montserrat's workplaces, and how can these be addressed? Judges, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Clarabel Figueroa.
Madam Moderator, judges, honorable members, Speaker of the House, fellow youth parliamentarians, and most valued guests, pleasant evening. I am Clarabel Figueroa, and it is an honor to be with you here today and have an active voice in my community. Please allow me to introduce the topic of discussion. What are the barriers to young people entering employment across Montserrat's workplaces, and how can these be addressed? There is no such thing as an acceptable level of unemployment, because hunger is not acceptable, poverty is not acceptable, poor health is not acceptable, and a ruined life is not acceptable. A quote by Herbert Humphrey. Globally, and even in our small island of Montserrat, entering employment in the island's workplaces for young persons can be inhibited by exhausting and frustrating barriers. Before I proceed, please allow me to define important terms in the topic of discussion. Unemployment is defined by the Montserrat Statistics Department as individuals who are employable and actively seeking for a job but are unable to find one. Recent data from the Statistics Department's 2020 Labor Force Survey indicated that overall, the youth unemployment rate stood at 20.9% as of September 20, 2020, with 18.7% being male and 24.2% female. According to Barriers to Entry in Economics 2015, barriers to entry are obstacles that make it difficult to enter a given market, and in this case, the job market. The barriers affecting the assimilation of young persons entering employment on Montserrat are, and this will be discussed as we go on, a crowded labor market and no readily available vacancies, mismatch of skills, expensive cost of living, and lack of entrepreneurship and life skills education. Crowded labor markets and no readily available vacancies are one of the major causes of youth unemployment on island. Firstly, one can attest that most jobs being advertised are highly qualified R17 and up jobs. It is not often that there are vacancies for entry-level jobs. Now, even for the entry-level jobs, this requires for the individual to possess both mathematics and English at the CXC levels and a few years of experience. And this, not all the persons possess. How can one tell a student that is just leaving school, whether high school or college, that they are to have so and so many years of experience if they have not even had any encounter in the labor market? Given that they may be qualified for these entry-level jobs, shouldn't the task be to embrace them, give them that opportunity, and train them in the right way to produce a successful analytical worker? If all the doors are closed in their faces, then how and when will they build up those so highly required years of experience? Where is the logic in this? The workforce would be losing a potentially dynamic, innovative, motivated young worker to either being discouraged and completely giving up looking for employment, or to another nation, as we are currently experiencing. The departure of so many qualified young persons from the island could mean one thing: brain drain. Long-term unemployment can make any worker progressively less employable, even after the economy strengthens, a quote by Janet Yellen. Another factor contributing to the increased youth unemployment is the mismatch of skills. According to Peace Child International, millions of young people are out of school and ready to work, but businesses need skills that these young people do not possess. This mismatch of skills results in young people experiencing a difficult school-to-work transition, and businesses are unable to find suitable candidates for their positions. In most instances, parents do not possess the required funds to send their children to receive higher education. Yes, the government of Montserrat, through the Human Resources Management Unit, offers awards, scholarships, and bursaries for individuals annually. However, is this enough for even half of the youth needing the assistance? Evidently not. A solution brought forth would have been a paid internship where after 1 year of obtaining job experience, the young person is then incorporated into the job and further trained. However, the purpose is defeated, as temporary employers do not often keep the young persons after the period of attachment for whichever reason. Governments and private sector need to have better collaboration in the identification of skills and knowledge that young people ought to be taught in order for them to have relevant skills for today's job or entrepreneurial markets. Expensive cost of living. In order to be able to live independently and pay their bills, young people need to have a steady source of income so that they are not relying on their parents' financial support. Since the cost of living is expensive, it makes it harder for millennials to start making their own living. With low entry-level wages and high living costs, many highly educated millennials are stuck in the restaurant and service industries where they make enough to survive, but there is nowhere to grow. This leads to a circle of nowhere and a cycle of continuous frustration. Let us face it, though food and housing are basic needs, they are quite expensive. And let's not even talk about the cost of pursuing tertiary education with no kind of assistance. Student loans cannot be readily obtained if neither the parent nor the young person has collateral set up, and this is mostly the case. Now, a few solutions we can look into this youth unemployment and the barriers. Number 1, plug in the skills gap. 2, increase youth access to capital. 3, more education and training programs. 4, universal internet access and greater availability of cheap technology. 5, boosting job creation and labor demand. 6, better preparing young people for the job market. 7, illuminating pathways to productive work. 8, improving financial well-being, both current and long-term. And 9, fostering entrepreneurship. We have too large a disparity in the world. We need more inclusiveness. If we continue to have a non-inclusive growth, and we continue with the unemployment situation, particularly youth unemployment, our global society is not sustainable. This is a quote by Klaus Schwab, and thank you very much. Everyone, have a pleasant evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Figueroa. One of the points she highlighted would be the lack of experience. As she said, students leaving either high school, college, they lack the experience. So while they may have the qualifications, where is the job training? So that's something to think about. Our 8th presenter is Miss Maritha Greenaway. Miss Greenaway is a young lady who is passionate about community work and volunteering. A recent graduate from the Montserrat Secondary School, where she was an active member of the student leadership team, she is currently enrolled at the Montserrat Community College, studying to be a physiotherapist. Maritha is very active in community, as she is part of the Montserrat Red Cross, the Montserrat Girls Brigade, where she is senior girl, the Montserrat Youth Theater Group, and the Montserrat Youth Ambassador. Maritha strongly believes in the motto by past President Theodore Roosevelt: do what you can with what you have where you are. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Maritha Greenaway will speak on how can we better deal with mental health issues and suicide prevention in school. Welcome her to the podium.
You do not have to struggle in silence. You can be unsilent. You can live with your mental health condition as long as you open up about it to someone. Demi Lovato. Madam Speaker, honorable judges, listeners across the web, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This evening, I will be presenting on my topic, how can we better deal with mental health issues and suicide prevention in schools? But what exactly is mental health? According to the World Health Organization, mental health is described as the state of well-being in which individuals realize his or her abilities, can cope with normal stress of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contributions to his or her community. Although data is not available on the mental health issues nor suicide cases at the Montserrat Secondary School, by no means possible Must we think that is not an issue? Youth encounter many challenges that affect them negatively and often too timid or afraid to speak or share these issues, which led to poor mental health. It could be as simple as depression, anxiety from exams, bipolar disorders, or as serious as contemplating or attempting suicide. One of our major challenges is youths would keep issues affecting them to themselves. Further, adults around them do not notice the changes that would be occurring and may just put it down to just growing up. As I was doing my research online, I came across the National Alliance of Mental Illness webpage, which outlined several steps that can be used to help grieving students through school crisis, which in turn will help to deal with mental health issues and may even act as a means of suicide prevention. The steps are as follows. Listen. We must pay attention to the verbal and nonverbal clues from students that show stress and make yourself available to talk. 2, protect. Answer questions honestly and communicate what is being done to keep students safe. Connect. Keep communication open with adults. Find resources that can offer support to help restore student activities that encourage interactions with friends. Model. Be aware of your own reactions to the crisis and demonstrate how to cope in a healthy way. Teach. Help students identify positive coping mechanisms and celebrate small achievements as they begin through each day successfully. Honorable Judge, colleagues, these 5 steps are definitely essential in helping to address both mental health illnesses and suicide prevention. Education awareness programs, which provide students and staff with information about mental health resources, aims to improve teenagers' coping abilities by training in stress management or positive coping strategies also is a requirement. Madam Speaker, because untreated mental health is frequently the cause of suicide, addressing mental health needs to often be the greatest strategy to try to prevent these tragedies. Many parents and teachers mistakenly believe that school-age children are incapable of experiencing mental conditions, but this is simply not the case. In fact, the National Alliance Mental Illness states 13% of children ages 8 to 15 experience a mental health condition. Furthermore, 50% of all life cases of mental illness begin at age 14, and 50% of children ages 8 to 15 experience mental health conditions that don't receive treatment. We also need to give consideration to those who do not speak English as their first language. This is an additional challenge for them. Individuals who speak different language do not have the luxury of accessing help as easily as we do. There is no one there to translate for them. This is a major disadvantage that impedes those students who need assistance. My colleague can agree with me as I enforce this point because when she first arrived to Montserrat, it was difficult for her to communicate with fellow youth at school. How much more when facing mental illness, mental issues? I have stated publicly that I stand as a voice for the voiceless, youth and even adults. And in my view, there are many students, I would dare to say, that are suffering in silence and ashamed to seek help when confronted with mental issues because of the stigma attached to it. It is important that public recognize health is health, whether it relates to physical, mental, and emotional. Whichever is affected, it should not be looked down upon. Rather, we should support and emphasize which is affected. From this day that you hear my voice, I want us all to commit that we would not treat anyone that is experiencing mental health issues less than. It is therefore important that the resources are available to build awareness of mental health issues from an early age at school and in the community. Madam Speaker, judges, and listeners across the web. Mental health issues and suicide is usually an overlooked topic in society. Yet, it is one of the most prominent issues, especially among teens. We should encourage one another to spread mental illness and suicide awareness because it is the most effective means of prevention. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greenaway, as you advocate spreading for prevention, educating the public, educating the schools on the issue will help prevent these mental health issues. Our final presenter for this evening is Miss Alana Cassie. Miss Cassie is a second form student at the Montserrat Secondary School. She is a member of the Saturday morning pre-cultural show hosted by Miss Rose Willock on ZJB Radio. At the Montserrat Secondary School, she joined the student leadership team and presently holds the position of prefect. Alana enjoys being of service to others as it gives her an unspeakable gratification. This evening, Alana will discuss the barriers to young people entering employment across Montserrat's workplaces and how can these be addressed. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, let us give her a warm welcome, Miss Alana Cassie.
Imagine a country full of youth with potential, but a system that cannot support it. Distinguished guests, Madam Speaker of the House, judges, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening. It is a pleasure to present to you the topic, what are the barriers to young people entering employment across Montserrat's workplaces, and how can these be addressed? I shall approach this topic by painting a picture of the issues. Thereafter, solutions will be presented. A two-point perspective will be used given my time restraints. Number one, let us examine Montserrat's education system and its infrastructure. Number two, a proper look at Montserrat workforce and aging population is another consideration to shed some light on this question. Now that I have outlined the crux of the matter, let us delve into it. Firstly, Montserrat has one secondary school, of which I am a proud member, but it is evident that things are awry and need some adjustment. The school currently has 340 students, from Forms 1 to 5. The school also boasts a teaching staff of 43 teachers. Let me be blunt and straight to the point. The quality of teachers available at the school needs to be improved, and the staff turnover rate also needs to be addressed. In my tenure at the school, I've witnessed at least 3 teachers leaving the school in one academic year, leaving the students in need of substitutes to help them prepare for critical exams such as CXC. This contributes to the fact that each year, at least 50 students graduate from the MSS, but only approximately 30% of them have adequate CXC passes to get accepted in a tertiary institution. The matter is further complex, as of the 30% of the passes, only 40% of them will be able to afford a university qualification, and a fewer percentage will remain in Montserrat. Let me put it in a clearer perspective. Of the 50 students that graduate each year, only 5 to 8 will remain in Montserrat with a professional university qualification to enter our working world. I ask you now, what happens to the others, especially those that are not academically inclined? Does Montserrat's education infrastructure have mechanisms in place to give them a skill to enter the job market? The sad answer, members of the audience, is no. Now that point 1 has been represented, let us look at number 2, our aging workforce issue. Studies have shown that global life expectancy at birth has now topped 70 years for men and 75 years for women, and the population living to 100 and older is predicted to grow to nearly 3.7 million by 2050, from just 95,000 in 1990. Based on these stats, Montserrat's Social Security Fund has found itself in a predicament where persons are living longer. Hence, more money is to be paid out from the fund, but not enough is coming in to build up the fund. In an effort to counteract this, our government took the stand to raise the retirement age to 65 to help with Social Security Fund issue. This move, though recognizable, needed to address one problem, sparked another issue: lack of jobs for new graduates. Now that persons work longer in Montserrat, the young people now have limited opportunities to enter the job market. According to Montserrat Statistical Department, our labor market stands at approximately 2,200 to 2,400 persons. Because the new retirement age is 65, less persons are retiring each year. The pattern seems to indicate that it is far less than the numbers leaving our nation's schools. This alone is one big barrier to our young people entering the labor force here in Montserrat. Okay, let us pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Go ahead, breathe in, because I know that information took your breath away. It sure did for me, as a young person looking to go out in the working world. But hope exists. It is not all glim and gloom. In our beloved country of Montserrat, there are solutions, and it is for us as young parliamentarians to identify these problems and use the right channels to advocate change. Let us start by addressing our education infrastructure by engaging good quality teachers with adequate remuneration packages for them to remain in their beloved profession. Let us create avenues for skills, training at the secondary and tertiary level right here in Montserrat to feed into our tourism, sand mining, and other industries. Let us find sustainable investments for earnings to support our Social Security Fund to prevent the retirement age from slipping further away. Let us create new industries for job creation to sectors such as ICT. Let us empower our youth to ably enter our workforce to make a positive contribution to Montserrat's future growth prospects. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope your time was well spent listening to my presentation, and I thank you.
As the youngest presenter, Ms. Cassie raised some very good points that we can really ponder on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the presentations. We have gotten 3 main topics where we looked at sexual exploitation of children, protection, consent, and the law. How can we better deal with mental health issues and suicide prevention in schools? And what are the barriers to young people entering employment across Montserrat's workplaces, and how can these be addressed? I know the judges have a hard task, and as they begin their deliberation, we have a little entertainment for you. We welcome Miss Lanisha Morton, who will do a dance for us. Welcome, Lanisha. Thank you very much, Lanisha. I should tell you that she's one of the main coordinators for the MSS dance group. So let us give her another round of applause. While the judges continue their deliberation, the floor is open. Anyone would like to make a comment, a question? Don't be shy. I see our parliamentarians are sitting, our ministers. Yes, Bernier. Say that again? They're all parliamentarians. Any comments from the sitting ministers? I'm putting you all on the spot. Honorable Cranston Beaufort. Yes.
Better deal with the situation that they're facing and stuff like that. I hear the need for more funding I hear the need for us to listen some more, and we're willing as a government to take that into consideration. Thank you very much for your bravery, and thank you very much for stepping up.
Thank you, Honorable Beaufort. Member of the opposition, Honorable Romeo. You know the teacher will always call the students.
Madam Moderator, I want to congratulate them for their performances this evening, and they were very convincing. Their presentations were well thought out and put together, and I just hope it won't be just academic, because you were so convincing. I'm hoping that you'll be advocates in truth for the very things you spoke about. So I wish you all the best and look forward to your work in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I to call the next student? Kinan. Dr. Sami.
Yeah, good night, Madam Moderator.
Good night.
I would like to express again my thanks to all the presenters tonight, because public speaking is not an easy thing. And coming forward in Montserrat and speaking on some of the topics that were spoken about in terms of child sexual exploitation, workplace issues, and mental health. A lot of times in our society we don't speak about these things. So to have young people expressing their views on this, and it's clear they did a lot of research on it, and they weren't afraid to say certain frank things, even with the ministers present, they were willing to say what their true thoughts are and to represent their feelings as young people. And as Mr. Buffon and the honorable member here pointed out, we'll be listening to them some more, and we're willing to listen to them and as best as we could to put those things into practice so that going forward, the atmosphere for our young people is better, so that we don't end up with 50 people graduating, as was pointed out by Ms. Cassie here, and only 5 people remaining, as something can be done to arrest that kind of flow and make young people realize that they are part of this society and they have a role to play in the society, and not just to keep quiet and to feel that nobody listens to them, but to put their points forward. So again, I'd like to congratulate them for joining National Youth Parliament, and I do hope that going forward we have more of these events where they express their views and we can get more of the actual sitting parliamentarians to come in and to listen to what they have to say.
Thank you. Yes. I recognize Mr. Jermaine Wade. I believe that he started out as a youth parliamentarian and moved into, the big leagues. And I would like to hear, a little contribution from you, Mr. Wade. Kinan, pass the mic.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to join the sentiments in congratulating the young people. In fact, I'm glad to see that some of you stood up to the plate and took the challenge to move into this direction. In fact, at least 1 or 2 of you consulted with me on some pointers as to how to present yourself as a public speaker, as a youth parliamentarian. I apologize as well for missing the vast majority of it. I was at the school's concert and kind of slipped me eventually. But delighted to be here. I want to encourage you to follow through. I look forward to the next step of the process, however. This is the start where we're exposing the young people, giving them the platform to speak. But I would like to see the youth parliament as a platform, as an incubator, so to speak, to start fostering politicians. I think that should be the main focus of the youth parliament, as opposed to public speaking platform. We want to train these young people to move into the big leagues, as you have said. I myself, having been a former youth parliamentarian and transitioning into the senior arena, is a good example of what can happen if they're well trained and given that exposure to not just make the arguments, as the honorable gentleman mentioned, but to represent Montserrat on a wider level, regionally, internationally. We want to give them that opportunity, starting from this platform. So this is a good initiative. I want to see it grow. I have offered myself before to support the cause, and I'm publicly mentioning it again. I'm available to support the growth and development of the youth parliament. Congratulations, young people.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to hear so much support. And we have Mr. Allen who would like to share some words.
Good evening, everybody, again. I think I want to commend the Madam Speaker and the Department of Legislature for the revival of the Youth Parliament. I believe that forums like these, occasions like these, as was mentioned by some of the previous gentlemen, offers so much of potential to Cassie, who normally is different when you're behind the mic at ZJB Radio and when you're in the open like this. And I can attest to that. It's way different. But this, of course, helps to, really develop your skills even more. We see one of the challenges of the National Youth Parliament over the years, and you rightfully said, a lot of our potential young people with the skills and the abilities to operate at this forum, and after time, you see they leave and they go to the bigger nations to develop their skills, and we're hoping that they would come back, but unfortunately, we see what has happened over the years. But it's nice to have this forum to develop those skills, own those skills to take you to the next level. As was rightfully said, other levels like the LIDC, for those who are at college, as you know, the LIDC Leeward Islands debating competition was started by a well-known monstration. And so we want to be able to keep occasions like these and activities like these alive so that our young people can continue to develop and to make their mark on contribution to mankind and humanity. So thank you very much, and we look forward, as was rightfully said, to more occasions like these. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Anybody else? Though I don't have my glasses on, I know some parents are here, and I'm sure one of them would like to share the experience, the journey with their daughter or son, preparing, researching. I know our youngest one is in second form, and I'm sure and she had exams. She had exams this week and preparing, researching. I'm sure probably mommy or daddy would like to share with us the experience. No, mommy and daddy shy? But any other parent? No? Okay. Our parents are a little shy tonight. I guess the children are what? Okay. So we're giving the judges, we have Ms. Silcott.
Madam Moderator.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I must compliment the Madam Speaker and the Office of the Legislature for actually getting the Youth Parliament going again. I think it's a good first step to have them stand in front of the mic and speak. It's not the easiest thing to do. It actually takes that kind of fortitude to stand up and actually deliver. I want to also add to what Jermaine would have said. I think we were in the Youth Parliament together, Jermaine. Yeah, many years ago. I think I'm looking forward to when we move from mere public speaking to actually debating in a full parliament setting with all of the players. That is where you're actually going to be building a little bit more of your confidence, being able to defend a position, for want of a better word. I'm looking forward to that. And as it stands, there are persons out there who can provide a little bit of support, even if it's to say, stand this way, defend this way, whatever it is you need. But I think from a local standpoint, we're going in the right direction. We are building the young people, so at least we may be able to have future politicians as well, because it's not just about public speaking. Public speaking is one thing. Being able to debate at that level is something else altogether. But I think it's a fantastic step, and I would encourage you to actually stay the course. It's to your benefit to be able to speak publicly and to speak publicly with confidence. So again, congratulations and all the best for the future.
Thank you, Ms. Silcott. Madam Speaker would like to say a few words.
Good evening again, everybody. I just wanted to stand and say that I am so proud of these young people. When we started off with 2 young persons, and the process was not a short one. It was a long one for us to get here. And I want to say thank you for staying the course. Up to tonight, we had one who did not want to continue the journey. Right outside the door, we had to do a lot of prep and a lot of pep talk to encourage to stay the course, because it's not easy to get up there, as somebody rightly said. Tonight is just the first step. We wanted to have a forum where they got a chance to get up and face the public and to speak publicly. And at first, we wanted to do it in a debate, but a lot of them were not comfortable. And so we wanted to give them a forum in which they were comfortable. So we gave them a choice of 3 topics so that they can choose the one that they were most comfortable with, so that they can start that way. And so they had a choice, they chose, and they prepared. I did not have anything to do with their preparation. They did it on their own. I just checked in periodically and asked if they need an ear. Most of them didn't need an ear. One person called just to check in, but they did it on their own, and I want to say congratulations. We got the judges involved because we didn't want to go through the traditional route of campaigning and doing the voting system. The young people agreed that sometimes it can become a popularity contest, and the most popular young person may get the vote. And so we went and we looked at what happens in other jurisdictions, and we decided to go with one of those, which is most of the jurisdictions, that is, the schools actually nominate the best of the best, and they compete, and the best of those do get chosen. However, we don't have the numbers in Montserrat. We don't have 20 that can compete, and then we whittle it down to the 11 that we need. Right now we have 9, and we really actually need about 12. And so the numbers we're going to use internally from the judges to determine the positions that they will actually hold. This is why the judges are here. As we move forward, the next step is to actually swear them in and to have a proper debate in the House. And so please listen out for that next step. Again, I want to thank them so much. I feel very proud of what you have done tonight.
Okay, and I think the judges are ready. Just before they come, I also want to echo the sentiments heard. Congratulations, you have made the first step. It is moving forward. And what do you do as an advocate for young people in Montserrat? That you have a voice. Use it, and use it well. We invite Miss Angela Eswick, who will give the feedback of the judges. Welcome her.
All protocols observed. Feedback is a gift. G-I-F-T. It's given with permission. The intent is for growth. It is for the person, not about the person, and it sets targets for success. I am delighted to be the giver of this gift this evening. To our pioneering, bright-minded young persons who have ably risen to the charge of being our potential change makers in Montserrat as they addressed 3 topical issues, quite ably so. In this context, the feedback that I will give is to encourage and reaffirm the congratulatory aspects of delivery and to suggest adjustments in areas that are targets for success so that you, our young persons, would do things differently. You'll be more self-aware and know what to do to be successful in your aims, to be effective in your delivery. I'll start with 4 of 10 tips that I noted from a presentation I attended recently by distinguished Toastmaster Roger Caesar. He placed 3rd in the 2021 World Championship of Public Speaking. The first tip, have a structure. Know your destination and carve out your path. The second, don't waste your opening. He used the 6-26 rule. You have 6 seconds to gain the attention of your audience and make an impact, and then you have 26 seconds to keep their attention. To do that, you can use a fact, an anecdote, or some humor. Thirdly, strike the right tone. Know your audience. And the last, end strong. Tie everything together. This evening, I want to start by sharing, and this is unanimous among the 4 judges, that's Ms. Weeks, Mrs. White, and Mr. Lee. I want to share with each, permit me to, indulge me. I want to speak to each of our presenters. St. Luke, we found that you had good vocal variety. Haley Shea, very good start and good use of the statistics relevant to Montserrat. Clarabel, I just mentioned the 6-second rule. You did justice to that. And you also did justice to the 26 seconds after that. Jaquan, excellent deportment and strong solutions advocate. Maritha, calm delivery and very well researched. Alana, that's our youngest presenter. We were all so impressed, all around. Very well done. Tyrese, good subject knowledge. Serena, you are passionate and convincing. And Jessamine, excellent research and analytical skills, and you kept us on your journey. So those are the points that we have in terms of feedback for each individual. Now, generally, we wanted to make some suggestions in terms of adjustments. We encourage fluency. We also encourage familiarity with your script so that you will be able to maintain eye contact with your audience and lift your head from your script from time to time. Your body language, we would like that you align your body language with what you are saying. There were times when we found that there was a disconnect. If you're using quotes, then reference your quotes, your statistics. If you're using acronyms, be sure not to just mention the acronym at the first use, but you say it, spell it out, and then you could use the abbreviation subsequently. End strong and not abruptly. And I recall, Alana, you did a very good use of that tool. And in closing, Ken Blanchard, an American author, consultant, and motivational speaker, he classifies feedback as the breakfast of champions. We see you all as champions of Montserrat's Youth Parliament. Your humble servant has served you breakfast. Indulge. Congratulations to all of you from the 4 judges.
And now we are at the end of our launch. And before I go into the thank you, there are two young ladies who I wanted to give some honorable mention. Is it two or one? I would like to mention Miss Michaela Cole. She started out with the original group. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to present tonight, but she pledged her support to the others and continued supporting quietly in the background, and she's here tonight to support them as well. And I want to shout out Michaela and thank you for continuing to support. And we look forward to you stepping in and taking up your place when you are ready. Michaela. And the other young lady is Miss Jenna Golan. She could not take part tonight for circumstances, but she stuck with us up until tonight, and she's here to lend her support to the others, and we want to thank her for that as well. Tonight, I want to thank our media groups, ZJB Media Team, Discover Montserrat, DS Media, 664 Connect, for coming here tonight, and GIU. I forgot that they're two separate entities. So the ZJB Media Team and the GIU team for coming out and for ensuring that those who could not make it here tonight could still partake and look at us on our local TV channels and on the YouTube channels for the GIU pages. We want to thank our judges, Mr. Kenya Lee, Miss Angela Eswick, Mrs. Siobhan White, and Miss Lucina Weeks for so ably taking up the task for us tonight. We want to thank our parents. I see a few of them here, teachers and other guests, and those who are viewing online or on the local channel. We want to thank our moderator, Miss Audrey Jean-Baptiste, for doing such a brilliant job. Thank you so much. And to the presenters who were the stars tonight, we want to thank you so much for stepping in and for taking part and for doing the research and for coming up here and delivering so ably. There are two other young persons who supported us in providing entertainment, Miss Lanisha Morton for her dance, and Mr. Josiah Prasad for providing the pan at the beginning. We want to thank you so much for coming. Please continue to support us and look out for the next invitation to the next activity, which would be the swearing in of our parliamentarians. Have a good night. Thank you.